Should
All
be.
right. This is exciting stuff. I've been waiting quite some time. Orrin Woodward, my man, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Cody.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have a ton of people on here, a ton of rock star entrepreneurs. And for those watching this, we have Orrin Woodward with us. And this guy is incredible. He is a great friend of mine, and he is an absolute amazing mentor of mine as well. And Orin, I've been kind of saving this for this webinar. As of today, my home is 100% free and clear because
Woo-hoo!
of the
Congratulations, Cody.
Yeah, that has been awesome. Now, Orrin Woodward, just so to kind of recap, we kind of said it in the advertisement that came to point you to this webinar. But he is a New York Times best-selling author. This guy has written incredible books. In fact, Orrin, I don't know if you remember this. The first time I met you, we were in this office the office that you're in, and I remember you writing me a personal message, giving me this book, and it literally was less than 24 hours I had this thing read. And you probably remember this. I text you like, Orrin, I can't put it down, man. Like, I'm dead tired, and I just can't put it down. And so, awesome book. This one I'm looking to read, Orrin. I'm excited to read Resolved. And at home, I just read it, and now my wife's reading it, is that Launching Leadership Revolution. And that is the book where you were, that was the New York Times #1 bestseller, right?
Yeah, that was Chris Brady and my first breakout hit. It went to #1 on the New York Times. And so, it's kind of been all kind of good stuff from there.
But it's good stuff. Like, you'll see me on Facebook. I quote you guys a lot, and I give the credit where credit's due. You'll see that a lot on my posts. He's the principal founder of Life, and he is a top 20 leadership influencer according to Inc. magazine. So each of you on this webinar know that you are talking with a very qualified man to be giving you leadership principles, as well as everything this guy owns is free and clear. He gets the financial fitness side. And so really that's what we're going to capitalize on today is going over the different principles of here we are as entrepreneurs going out there making money, making good amounts of money. That's awesome. This is great. But Orrin is going to teach us some of the principles so that we can keep that money, so that we don't ever hit rock bottom. And Orrin, I'm super excited. I feel like every time I'm with you, I come home with so many gold nuggets to implement. And I'm so excited for each of our listeners today to learn exactly those same principles that made me like just have this fire inside me, where literally I think I've texted you over the last 6 months, like, hey, Orrin, I threw another 30,000 on my home. Hey, Orrin, I did this. Hey, Orrin, I did this. And here I am today because of those principles I'm learning from you. My home is free and clear, and I'm well on my way to being financially free because of you. So let's rock and roll. Let's get this going.
Well, what a beautiful introduction for financial fitness. As you see on the screen here, that's where we're here to talk about. And Cody, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I gave you that book and you just hammered. And the key is to ownership. It's like to get to the point where you own things free and clear so they can't ever be taken from you. Because how many times do we hear great entrepreneurs that were out making millions, and the next thing you know, you hear they lost it all, and you're like, what happened to them? And what happened is they weren't applying all the principles of financial fitness. And if we back up a little bit, Cody, 99% of the people in the wealthiest country in the world, the United States of America, 99% of the people do not live financially free. That means having their money and time freedom. They don't have to show up to any job. They have enough ongoing income coming in, and they can, take time off. They can go enjoy the finer things, money and time freedom. And when you ask, well, why is that the case? And it's like, it's really lack of financial literacy. It's a lack of understanding about not only how to make money, but also how to keep it. In fact, survey after survey keeps revealing when people are asked, what is your plan to be financially free over the next 5 years? Here's your top 3 answers. Number 1, I'm going to win the lottery. Woohoo! It's like, even if you understand the math, even if you happen to beat the odds and win the lottery, when you actually look at the studies of what happens to people after they win the lottery, usually they end up losing it all, and their life's even worse than it was, filing bankruptcy, etc., because they don't understand how to keep what they made. So lottery, not a good plan. Number 2, inheritance. I'm hoping I'm not going to figure out finances, but I'm hoping somebody I know, maybe a relative, maybe some genius kid of mine will figure it out and he'll give me some of his money. And so inheritance, number 2. And number 3.
So kind of listen to that, Orrin. Like, as you say this, I think what's so crazy is it's almost that principle. And have you heard, I sometimes hear this same saying over and over again, kind of what you said, this inheritance. Like, ultimately, when I inherit money, all of a sudden I'm going to know exactly what to do. I've one of the big things that I know you do, and something that me and Wendy practice, and then literally our tribe practices, Tom practices, and that's when this money comes in, we're giving. And so many times I've heard individuals say, oh, when I have money, I'm going to give. And I'm just sitting there thinking, no, you start now. It doesn't start when money comes. Like, you can give of time. You can give of 10 cents, whatever it is. That sacrifice is the same as if someone gave $1,000. And so this same thing, it's like, just because you inherit money doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to be financially sound. So that's
it's financial literacy again. In fact, that's part of our program, is to teach tithing and to teach giving, because it creates a giving spirit to where so many people have a scarcity mentality, and that's part of what kills wealth creation. And so look at the last one, talk about scarcity mentality. You've got money and I want it, and lawsuits. You know? There's the old Russian proverb, before you sue somebody, dig 2 graves. Because it's just so much negativity. Like, I mean, anytime you're dealing with people in lawsuits, there's so much negativity, and he says, she says. And so it's just like, man, when you look at those 3 choices, no wonder people are not financially free if those are the 3 ways they think that you're going to create wealth. Because, Cody, you and Wendy have created your wealth. You didn't do any one of those 3. You created a business, and by serving others, created wealth. So let's dig into that a little bit. You say, well, okay, but even if I create wealth, is that enough? If I can actually make money, in other words, kind of like if we're pouring water into a bucket, if I can pour enough in, does it not matter how many holes I have in my bucket? And the whole system is kind of tilted against the individual. If you take a look at the 3 main ways that's so, taxes. I mean, you, as you started making money, I'm sure you realized that you had a partner in your business called the US federal government. And it says, you know what, Cody, 1 for you, 1 for me. And we're being very conservative when we say taxes 1/3 of your income, because really, if you add up all the hidden taxes, it's even more than that. But that's a significant chunk of what you make going out. It's kind of like when you talk to your friends and you quote how much you make, you always say you're gross. But when you're talking to your wife, you always quote net. You know, like, oh, no, honey, we're not making that much. We're actually only keeping this much, you know. And number 2 is inflation. You got inflation. It's working against every single person that is part of the monetary system. $1 in 1913, 100 years later in 2013, was only worth 4 cents. So, I mean, systematically, they're draining away the purchasing power of the money we're making. So you've got to come up with a plan to beat that. And then the third one is debt service. And this is the crazy one. This is directly in most people's control. But most households have 1/3 of their income going out to service their debt. That's their house payment, their car payments, their car leases. I borrowed money to buy a motorcycle, all the boats, all these different things. They're servicing debt 1/3 of their income. So you start adding that up, over 2/3 of your income's gone before you spent your first dollar on figuring out how you're going to survive.
Yeah. Wow. So that sits there. That's a good visual to see more and more than just kind of go through life thinking you know those numbers, but seeing those numbers are scary. 2/3 of every dollar coming in is already going out the door to service debts for the average household and taxes.
So now, see, Cody, now we're at the point where, okay, so that's a negative. So people lack financial understanding. And most solutions in life revolve around new information produces new results. And so the 2 main components to truly live financially free is financial literacy and entrepreneurship. Now, I'm not going to go too far into entrepreneurship, but Cody,
sure,
you and Tom, you guys have just nailed this. Like, I mean, when you guys came over and we started spending some time, I was so impressed by the entrepreneurship model. I mean, congratulations to everybody watching this. You're an entrepreneur. You're a part of the Rhino. You're part of a organization, a tribe that focuses on leading people and leveraging systems. And you guys have created a system for your community to leverage that. It's hard to argue with the results you're producing. People are creating wealth. They're entrepreneurs. And so when I looked at your business model, I'm like, well, just add the second piece. We talk about the entrepreneur leap. I remember going to a conference one time. There were 78,000 people in the Atlanta, Georgia Dome. And in front of 78,000, one of the top motivational speakers of that era said, if you want to be an entrepreneur, leap and the net will appear. And the crowd went crazy. Yes, leap and the net will appear. And I'm like an engineer scratching my head. I'm like, can I really tell my son or daughter to leap and just pray that the net appears? And I'm like, why wouldn't I teach them to actually put down a net and then leap like crazy? And even if you miss on one of your leaps, you're going to land. Because let's face it, as an entrepreneur, the way you learn as an entrepreneur is you fail your way to victory. You fail, sure, make adjustments, and you prove. So it's kind of hard to make too many adjustments if every time you leap and do your acrobatic leap, you land on pavement. You're not quite as interested in failure. So the net is financial literacy. The net is learning the two ways people fail financially is they spend when they should be saving. If you spend all your money, you don't have any to invest. And number two is they make some money, but then they save it and they're cheap on investments. I'm sure as you're talking marketing with your team, some people are like, well, I won't spend money on marketing and I'll, quote, save money. Well, if you save money on marketing, you ended up losing all your customer base. That's not really, in other words, you've got to have that. I will invest money like crazy because investing has a return, ROI,
right?
Return on investment. Where spending, I will be a little more cautious on spending until I have cash overflowing because I don't ever want to eat my seed-weed. As an entrepreneur, too many entrepreneurs, they spend too much money, then they don't have the money necessary to invest where they need to invest.
So, Orrin, tell me this to kind of throw out a gold nugget. What do you like to see as like a financial, some financial security in place? If someone's like, man, we shouldn't be spending right now, we should be saving. What should that look like in all reality? Should they have 3 months? Should they have 6 months? Should they have a whole year? What should be saved? What should be that safety net before they start looking at some of the spending?
You're building up to a year, Cody. In other words, like, hey, you might start your entrepreneurship venture and not have that. I certainly didn't. But if you look at my life, I remember the first year I made $1 million. I was living in a 1,900 square foot house. And everybody's like, well, if he's really making that type of money, why is he living in a 1,900 square foot house? And I'm like, here's the answer. I wasn't trying to keep up with the Joneses. I didn't even know the Joneses. And I wasn't suffering from peer pressure. In other words, I was focused on a game plan, and we lived for almost another year. And so here you're making that type of money and still living in a 1,900 square foot house. Now, many of you probably won't be quite that crazy. You don't have to be. But I was sitting there thinking that, you know what, over the next 20, 30 years, no one's going to remember I spent an extra year living in a 1,900 square foot house. But all that did is to secure the net so in place that then I could keep leaping from success to success. And even if I fell, I knew that my financial security net was in place. So I wasn't ever going to go back to being an engineer for a living like I started.
Sure. I love that. That's also ultimately you're building up over time up to a year's savings sitting in there.
Well, think about how secure that is for you, Cody. It's like if something happens and you go through a transition and you went a year with no income, knowing that you have a year's worth of savings that you could live, not change your lifestyle whatsoever, not have to sell anything, that would give you plenty of time for you and Tom, the creators that you are, to come up with any model and be able to rebound very successful versus having to go start filing for bankruptcy, selling houses, and all the financial stress that would cause on the entrepreneur.
I love this though, because it's showing a little bit on that slide, defense and offense, like saving when you should, or not spending when you should be, not spending when you should be saving. And then sometimes we hold on to that money a little bit too long and save when we should be investing. And so I love that you're pointing out there's two sides of this coin. There's the offensive side and there's that defensive side, or I should say defensive first, get that money in, but then there's an offensive side to make sure you're being wise with that investment. And I love how maybe the world would tell us that maybe a boat is an investment, and it really it's a liability. It's a depreciating asset. But really, what are some of the what are some of like the investments that you're thinking of when you're talking investments? What is it that you're looking? Are you investing in yourself? Are you investing in businesses? Are you investing in real estate? What does that look like?
So at start, like, for a brand new investor, I mean, I'm not an investment counselor on the high side. You start making millions, you definitely want to go get a professional, and you get what you pay for in that.
Sure.
But on the beginning side, now let's talk about beginning. The number one investment, in fact, Warren Buffett said it this way: the only thing that compounds faster than interest is learning. And so the beginning of all investment, and for an entrepreneur especially, is invest in themselves. It's like invest in your thinking, invest in your skills. As you improve skills, you improve learning, you improve earning. And it shocks me how many people will go spend big money and put in premium gas into some vehicle. And they treat their vehicle like, oh man, it's got to stay out of the sun. We can never let it be in rain. We'll park it in there and have an atmospheric pressure to make sure it's just perfect. Yet they treat their brain to a whole bunch of garbage junk. It's that garbage in, garbage out. Like, man, feed your brain premium thoughts through reading, listening, and associating. I believe that your entrepreneurship would radically change if you would create a habit of every day, and I'm kind of speaking to the choir when I'm talking to you, Cody, because one of the things that impressed me, you finished Financial Matrix in a 24-hour period. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but you sent me a text and showed a picture of a check that you were writing that hammered down your house mortgage. It was like the next day. I'm like, what? We talk about reading and applying. Read, listen, associate, and then apply. And one of the things that makes you and Tom such a special team is because you don't just read, listen, associate to rah, rah, we're fired up. You actually do that so that you can learn better information, so that you can apply a better information and produce results. And that I'm all over that. Your number one investment you can invest in is yourself. And then after you've invested every penny you can in yourself, then start talking about, okay, now let's start investing in my business. How can I do better marketing? How can I, and all the other things. But if you ever achieve an investment in yourself, you are starving the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Yeah. Well, Tom and I were impressed. This is something I think is crucial when you're talking about read, listen, associate, apply. How many hours a day, just to kind of give our audience here to understand how much you invest in your mind, how many hours a day do you spend on reading?
So on an average day in reading, I'm a minimum of 4 hours, somewhere between 4 to 6 hours a day. And
that's
people
incredible.
You're crazy, Orin. How can you possibly do that? And I'm like, no, hold on a second. I started out as an engineer. I worked 8 to 10 hours as an engineer and then did my entrepreneurship on the side. So don't mind me if now that I'm not working as an engineer, that I still treat it like a job. And my number one job that I have is to continue to educate this, because as I feed better ideas into my mind and my mind thinks through those ideas, I can come up with better ideas to produce results. Again, what is an entrepreneur? They do two things. They lead people and they leverage systems. That's the two things an entrepreneur does. So every day I'm reading so I can learn better how to lead people, examples, historical example, whatever. I'm studying how the best people, the best entrepreneurs, the best historical figures led people. And then I'm studying systems thinking. How do I take what I'm learning and create it so simple that E-Myth said it this way.
Michael Gerber, right?
Yeah, Michael Gerber said, create systems to make it so simple that you can help the average person produce an unaverage result.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Now, how does that all fit with this? Like when we're talking, this slide, by the way, blew my mind when we went over this. Like I love this. It's so simple. I love quadrants. We love even like Robert Kiyosaki has like a cash flow quadrant.
Yeah.
And I love quadrants because it helps you really realize where you're at currently and where do you want to be at. And as I look at this screen, I'm already sitting here like excited like a little kid at Christmas for you to share exactly what this is.
Oh, this came to me again from reading those 4, 5, 6 hours, listening and associating. I woke up one morning, I said, you know what? I need a real clear way to describe these two principles. And I was like, well, why don't I put it into a matrix of quadrants? And it said, financial literacy is absolutely an essential part of financial freedom, but so is entrepreneurship. So I put both those, and there's really, you either are an entrepreneur or you're not. You either are financially literate or you're not. And so there's really only 4 boxes you can fit in. And so look at the first one, the lower left corner. If you're not an entrepreneur, so you don't have a way to increase the amount of water going into your bucket, so to speak, pouring more money into your bucket, and you're not financially literate, which means that you have a whole bunch of holes in your bucket being drained out for servicing debt and tax, all these crazy things, then you're broke. And people are like, I'm not broke. I make $1 million a year, or I make 500,000. And I'm like, I heard the best quote, come up with it. I said, if you, even if you're have a master's degree when it comes to making money, if you have a PhD in spending money, you're still broke. Well, it does make $1 million a year. If you're spending $1 million a year or worse, then you're still broke because you're just broke at a higher level. And so, because you got a paycheck to paycheck mentality, whatever I make is what I spend. And so that means that you're not financially literate because you're not building towards that year's worth of savings that we're talking about. So the broke is like, I just put an X through that and like, don't live there. If you're not an entrepreneur and you're not financially literate, or even if you are, here's a worse one. What if you are an entrepreneur? What if you have this amazing, like what if someone joined your program, Cody, and man, they're part of your program and they went out, they made several $100,000 their first year. Like, man, you'd be celebrating them on their stages of success. Well, what if a couple of years from now, they get used to spending a couple $100,000 plus a year, but then their income through, different things happening, maybe health challenge, whatever, goes back to 50,000. Now, without financial literacy, guess what just happened? They just did their entrepreneur leap and they went splat because now they're selling off assets and people are like, oh no, if I made that type of money, if I made $1 million a year even, after a couple years, I would never have a financial problem again. And I'm like, oh, contraire, take a look at what the NFL does.
I was going to say, share that because this principle is true. Like we all know the people of the NFL, NBA. I mean, there's even a video on Allen Iverson that blew my mind. One of the highest paid NBA players. But this is exactly what you're saying. Kind of share those stats.
It was stunning as I read it. 2009 Sports Illustrated said the average player plays in the NFL 3 years. The average contract in 2009, it's higher today, but in 2009, the median contract for a new player was $1 million a year. And so can you imagine most people watching this right now, if I said, I'm going to stroke you $1 million check for the next 3 years, but I don't want you to learn a thing. Don't worry about your brain. Don't learn anything. I'm just going to hand you $1 million for 3 years. Your financial problems are over. And many of you'd think, oh, yeah, I'll take that. Instead of me having to do the hard work of reading, listening, associating, I'll just take these checks from Cody or Orin, and I'm super happy. Well, what the results of that, this is Sports Illustrated. Now, remember, they're going to say positive things about the NFL because they write about them all the time. But they said 78% of those players, 2 years after retirement, are filing bankruptcy or under significant financial hardship, which means distress, selling off assets. Now, if you scratch your head, like 78% of the people in the broke quadrant aren't filing for bankruptcy. So you actually are in worse financial shape if you make a lot of money without financial literacy. That's why I'm on this. Because when I heard the type of incomes that you can help people create, we got to get them, look, Cody, don't climb someone to the top of Mount Everest without putting some safety ropes on them. Because if they don't have that safety net, when they fall off Mount Everest, it hurts a lot more. It's the old joke, a man who's down need fear no fall. If you're down at the bottom broke, you're not going to hurt yourself because you don't even have enough money to hurt yourself. But if you're making good money and don't have financial literacy, now you can start hurting yourself. And that's why I am on a mission to talk to every entrepreneur, because 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs are not financially free. They're what I call bottle rockets. They make big money, but then 2, 3, 4
what goes up must come down.
You shoot a bottle rocket. If you were a kid playing with bottle rockets, oh, wow, look at this going big. But it didn't hit the moon, did it? It turned and fell back down because it never broke the atmosphere. It didn't break through gravity. And gravity is constantly working against you financially. And you've got to be able to break it. And the way you break it is both of them. Entrepreneurship and financial literacy together takes your rocket into the stratosphere.
Which is key. So I love this because in wholesaling, as you know, there's great opportunities to make a great amount of money. And so that's why I love doing this webinar together. to make sure that everyone that is making great money in wholesaling, that they're also learning this key principle, because there's nothing worse than making great money and you could have been receiving this financial literacy and getting out of debt and putting money where it should be, versus thinking life's going to continue to go this way. And then 1 year, 2 years, 3 years later, after you're done, you're just like the NFL players. And so this is so crucial. And this is why I'm so excited to be doing this webinar, is because entrepreneurship is awesome. And it can be found in so many different ways, but specifically when we're talking about the wholesalers that we work with, how we can put that safety net down, how we can teach them financial literacy.
Well, you led me right into the next slide, Cody, because, you talk about broke and bottle rocket. I mean, broke's pretty straightforward. It's like, person starts their full-time job, they make a little bit of pay raises, somewhere around 30, it levels off, and their income versus inflation, it basically just tracks with inflation. Then they retire and lose 1/2 to 2/3 of what they already didn't like. And so I'm kind of speaking to the choir here, because everybody on this call kind of knew, well, I don't want that. That's why they got into entrepreneurship. But again, entrepreneurship, look at this, success, success, success. But then 1 year you have a down year. If you've been playing the double or nothing game, oh, as long as I'm making more, we'll spend it, double or nothing. I mean, if you're playing a game of craps and you're double or nothing all the time, what do you think the chances are one time you're going to roll some unlucky numbers, some dice, and boom, you go flat down because you didn't have your security net in place. And then starting over at 40, that's not so fun. But then they do it, man, I'm going to build it back, and they build it up again, double or nothing, double or nothing. And I'm thinking, why would you take all the time to master entrepreneurship and not also master the second key aspect to live financially free for the long time, and that's financial literacy? So I looked at these and I'm just like, if I was talking to my own son or daughter, I would not recommend either one of these quadrants for their long-term goal.
Well, and I'm laughing as you share this, because just personally between me and you, I was at Orin's house and we're sitting there shooting pool, and this table shark decided to just crush me in pool, by the way. And we're sitting there shooting pool, and I'm like, I've got to go double or nothing. Like, I'm going to shoot this shot. And I ended up hitting the 8-ball in. And you're like, Cody, why would you do double or nothing? You had a safe shot here, but you took this one. I'm like, you're right. You're right, Orrin.
And the crazy thing, Cody, you were killing me that game. You were on the comeback trail. You were down to shooting the 8-ball. And here you had one ball left.
So like 5 balls.
and I had like 5. I mean, you were killing me. And then he said, I'm doing it. I'm going to shoot the shot. And I'm like, man, you got about a 50% chance of scratching on that. And then you're going to lose the whole game versus maybe not as good a shot over here. And so many people think, yeah, but this is my best way. I can make the most money if I take this gamble. And I'm thinking, well, what if you only made half as much, but it was 100% secure because you put down the net? Always think long-term. That's one of the things I tell entrepreneurs all the time is think long-term. You don't have to be a multimillionaire next year. What if it took you 4 or 5 years? You know what? No one's going to remember if you're spending the next 40, 50 years enjoying a great life that, for 3 or 4 years he did a more safer route, versus if you're climbing Mount Everest, taking the most dangerous route, you have a 50% chance of splatting. I'm going to pass on that because I've got kids. I want my wife, Lori, and myself and our family to enjoy long-term wealth.
I love it. And this is key words that I can sit here and listen to and agree with. Just knowing your financial situation, that you are a multimillionaire. You do have a great 9-acre estate that I stayed at, and it's free and clear. Like, this is stuff that when I look at this, I'm like, okay, his advice is also going to help me accomplish what I want to accomplish because he's doing it. And so I appreciate you sharing this because you're living it. It's not, hey, this sounds all good. You are living exactly what you're talking to us
about.
Well,
Cody, you're 34 years old, if I remember right. And
that is correct.
you just wiped out your house payment. I mean, like, you are now living these principles. And that's like, I mean, to me, when I find a young entrepreneur that's doing the right principles and you have influence to where now you can take the success you're having and pass it on to another younger, a 20-some-year-old entrepreneur that's hungry, willing to be your student. You're going to teach them all of this mastery of entrepreneurship that you've learned over the years. And now you're also saying, oh, by the way, we're not leap and the net will appear. We're leap while we build our net.
That's awesome.
And so, so if you take a look at it, we talk about the entrepreneur leap. Let's go up to the upper left-hand corner, the financial security. This is that year-long of income that we're talking about. What safer way to build financial freedom than to have laid down the financial literacy net and then start leaping, do your entrepreneur leap. But since your net's in place, you really can't lose. The worst that's going to happen to you in the process of making your entrepreneur leap is through applying the proper principles, you're going to get to financial security. So we don't want the broke quadrant. We don't want the bottle rocket quadrant. Let's ensure that we're at least going to be financially secure and then become the best students of whatever entrepreneurial venture we're in, whether it's wholesaling, whether it's building life, whether it's whatever real estate, whatever you're in, master it entrepreneurship-wise, but make sure you have the net to where as you're jumping and making mistakes, you're comfortably landing on a net. You're secure. And then you're willing to attempt some more fancy leaps because you know, hey, worst comes to worst, I'm just going to land on this net, get back up and do it again. I'm not gambling my whole financial future on one roll of the dice.
Yep.
And so that's it. Financial freedom should be the goal. Everybody listen to this. Everybody, I mean, think about it. How millions of people go to work every day and only 1 out of 100 people have figured out how to live financially free? I mean, if
what would be the best definition of that? Like, explain to them what truly financial freedom
means. That you could take a year away from whatever you're doing and it would have ongoing income. Like you produced a business model that has ongoing income streams because you created around leading people and leveraging systems. So if Lori and I took a year-long cruise, we would come back and we would still have a significant multi-million-dollar income stream that we would come back to because of the way we built it around leading people and leveraging systems. Most people, even if the ones that are, man, I'm making good money, but if you have to be there every day to make that money long term, you still are carrying buckets, so to speak. You're trading time for money. So
and you really could quit right now and you'd be fine the rest of your life.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got enough income already put away. Our investors said, you don't have to do anything, but it's not a matter of that. It's like, to me, it's not like Michael Jordan. If you ask Michael Jordan in his prime and he had all these multi-millions and stuff and you said, hey, Michael, you don't need to play basketball anymore. He says, man, he actually signed a contract that allowed him to play basketball in the off season. And they called it for the love of the game rule because he loved the game so much. Like if someone said, Orrin, you can't do what you want to do. I'm like, well, what's the point of having freedom if I don't? Like, I look forward to this call because I love educating people on things that I've learned that have blessed my life. And so when you told me, you made my day earlier when you said I just paid off my house. I'm like, now I know here's a 34-year-old young man that owns. I mean, we talk about, oh, I own that car. Well, no, you're loaning that, you're borrowing that car, and the bank lets you drive it for a while or whatever, or you get to live in that house so long as you keep making the payments. You know you own that house. Now all you're doing is servicing a little bit of property tax, and you get to keep that thing free and clear. So financial freedom, that's the dream. That should be the dream. I don't believe there's nobody that said, I want to be an entrepreneur and I don't want to be financially free. I mean, that's the whole point of why do we want control of our money and time. We want to be able to take the dream vacations. We want to drive the type of cars, live in the type of houses, associate with the type of people that we want. That's the dream. And most people are so constrained time and money that they never get to live their dreams because time and money dictate to them their life.
I love it. And everything you're talking about is a system that you have in place that helps individuals, entrepreneurs, be able to become debt free. So everything we're talking about, I mean, I like I said, this is all credit goes back to you in a way of I've learned a lot. There's been so much by just listening to you, but then also applying the principles in this financial fitness that's it's been life-changing.
Well, you've been a true student of read, listen, associate, even before you met me, and now you're just taking it into pounding through Rascal Radio and stuff that we'll get into here in a bit. So take a look at the curves now. Let's look at that income over age curve now for financially secure. I mean, notice this isn't, I mean, he's not exploding here. He's probably got a job, a steady income, but just being financially secure, at least it allows you to, when you get into your later years. I mean, this is, you know, it's a 20, 30-year plan to really do this. So this is kind of like, if you're not going to be an entrepreneur, at least be financially literate. But this is kind of the one that I'm talking to today. For the Rhino tribe, the Rhino community.
I love it. You know it.
You guys are, man, look at the type of incomes you can make. Now, let's say you have that bad year. Let's say that your income, for whatever reason, bust cycle happens, like a 2008 happens again. And let's say everybody's income in your tribe was cut by 2/3. And if your income's cut by 2/3 and all of a sudden you're selling off everything and, you know, all the car had to go, then I would tell you, all right, we didn't follow the principles of financial literacy because, you know, Lori and I, through a couple of transitions, had to go sit out a whole year one time. And so we made no income for a whole year and didn't change our lifestyle, didn't sell one thing. Why? Because we had the net down. So in that bad year, yeah, you might eat into some of your savings, but notice that you survive that couple year period, and then boom, right back to aggressive growth again because you built your entrepreneurial leaps on a financial net. That is the dream.
I love it. I love it. And this I love even more.
And here, this is kind of the granddaddy of them all. This is, our financial fitness program, $120, and it starts the process. Now, so many people think, well, I'm going to buy this pack and all of a sudden magically my financial situation is going to radically change. And it can when you apply it. I mean, so don't buy a green box and have it sitting on a shelf and think that it's going to change anything.
And turn into a dusty box.
Right. It's just a good book or, a paperweight. That's not what this is. This is information to apply. There are 47 specific principles that we walk through. And the first month is you get the green box and dive into it. I have a good friend of mine was just down last week and went to a football game with me. And he came down. I met him 6 months earlier. And we talked. I loaned him. I gave him a copy of Financial Matrix. He pounded through it just like you did, Cody. And he wiped out $25,000. Now, he doesn't make the type of incomes you guys make, but he wiped out $25,000 of debt and is on right now a 4-year plan to be totally financially free on an income of around $50,000 a year. And I'm like, Jody, that is amazing results. How did you do it? He said, it's all in the financial fitness program. I just took the information and applied it.
And that's the case. So Wendy and I have been going through this. So that what you're looking at right now, for all those listening right now, this is the exact same thing that me and Wendy went through. So we bought this financial fitness program. Now, here's the thing that's beautiful is I love the gold nuggets, the knowledge, and you've already said it, $120. I sit there and think, here is something that's taught me principles, that's helped me pay off my house, has helped me save the way I need to save, and then think investment-wise to keep that money coming in. It all learned from these 47 principles of this financial fitness. I love this program. Like, I love it. Tom's gone through it. I've gone through it. I know our team members at Wholesaling Inc. have gone through it, and it's been awesome. And it's good for all levels. It's not to say, only for those that make $100,000 a month, or only those that make $200,000 a month. Even those that only make $1,000 a month, this right here will absolutely change your life.
I mean, if you walk through it, I say, it just cracks me up because our whole program is $120 the first month, $120 a month for defense and offense. And we educate people on how to defense. Make sure there's no holes in your bucket that are draining out money. And then offense, let's figure out how to pour more money in. And it just amazing to me how many people that will take $120 and say, I can't afford that. And I'm scratching my head. I'm like you used an example of paying off your mortgage. Well, if you take a $2,000 mortgage, for example,
which is spot on.
The average $2,000 mortgage is $1,800 plus of it is going to pay interest. So you've just wiped out an $1,800 hole, $1,800 a month hole that used to drain out of your finances. You've wiped that out. Would it be worth investing $120 a month to learn on just one of the things that you've done that saved, $1,000, $1,500, $1,800. And so once people get this, remember, every investment has a return. So if you're investing $120 and it's returning $200, $500, $1,000, Jody, he said, man, in my average budget, I'm $600 a month better than I was when I first met you. And I've done that for less than $120 a month. That's just crazy.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Oh, this is my favorite, Orrin. I'm glad this slide is in here.
I'm going to let
I'm going to laugh.
You got to share on your offense because you are killing the offense on this one, Cody.
Brother, what do you see?
I see an
this
app.
one right there, but this one also, I can tell you, my wife listens to Rascal Radio every single day. I could be sitting in the garage, cleaning the garage, and the van pulls up. Yes, we got the van in Utah. Vans are awesome here. She pulls up in the garage, and you can hear the speaker blaring, and it's Orrin Woodward in the background, or Chris Brady in the background, or Dan or Lisa Hawkins. Like, it is. I love that she loves this just as much as I do because it's teaching such good leadership principles. It's teaching now the offensive side of how to keep growing that mind. We love Rascal Radio, by the way.
These are all those names you mentioned. These are all financially free people that have lived these principles, that built entrepreneurship, built financial literacy, and live a dream lifestyle through applying the principles, and they're available for everybody. So you have taken the offense, the play offense, because you're such a great student of read, listen, associate, and that's what it is. It's like, as an entrepreneur, you should be involved in read, listen, associate anyhow, and that's part of just understanding the difference between an investment and an expense. And then the defensive.
Tell me this one, because there's sometimes where I am like talking to you in person, I can walk away with like a million times more gold nuggets, a million times more knowledge walking away from being in person with you. What about those that are wanting, like, you've got the financial fitness in the book, you're reading it, and we've done that. We absolutely love it. What about like those principles of getting to hear it like right from Orrin's mouth or right from Chris's mouth? Do you have something like that? That
is right over here, the defense. Like Chris Brady and myself. Again, Chris Brady is another multimillionaire, totally financially free.
Love that guy, by the way. Love him.
And been a business partner. We 24-year business partnership. So we've just met at 18 years old as engineers in training. And so
analysis paralysis, information overload engineers.
Exactly. Financial literacy training, the 47 principles. How would you like it if Chris and myself every month we produced and went through each of the 47 principles and say, here's how you apply this principle into your life as an entrepreneur in financial literacy. And so what better training can you get than two guys that produce those results? And you can sit down, watch it from your smartphone, watch it from your computer, and study that principle and say, are we living that principle in our personal finances? What type of value would that be to you over the next year? So many people, they take 10, 15, 20 years to mess up their finances, and then they want to fix it in 30 days. That's just not a mature time frame. In other words, it takes time to change your money view. You've spent years kind of having, well, when I see this, I react this way, and we've got to teach you new habits. And habits take time. You got to break the old habit and replace it with something new. The old political saying, you can't beat something with nothing. We got to not just stop the old bad habit, but we got to replace it with the good habit, and that's the 47 principles.
I love it, and this app is awesome. I love it that you have it in books, so for the readers out there, I love it, but I love this app as well because of what you just said, and that was kind of a setup question just to let people know. For those that like to learn like I do, I like to learn in person. I like to learn from video. I like to learn right from the source. And so I love this app for that way. It breaks down those 47 financial fitness principles, and it's done with a live video from you and Chris. And you guys do a phenomenal job at it. And it just helps reiterate what me and Wendy read, and then the power behind it of like, oh man, we skipped that step. We got to get that step in place. And so we'll listen to these things even when we go on road trips. It's my kids. We have like a little screen in the back to play their Disney movie. And then Wendy and I have headphones on. We're listening to life
You guys, the fact that you've been that good of a student, like I said, when you guys learn something, you apply it. And there's so much more to that than even just the financial literacy training. You've got, legal protection, prepaid legal. Like say, you can call and get free advice. There's like what we did is said, there's certain things that you need to understand the defense. How do we block the holes? It's like, if we want to pour money into a bucket, we don't want it all draining out. So you guys have mastered some principles on how to pour money into the bucket. And now we've got teaching some of the principles of how to keep that. Let's seal up those holes and protect the money that you're making, the offensive side, the investment in your thinking. So this whole program is so complementary. That's why I said, man, this is one hand washing the other. You guys, you have a community where you want them to read, listen, associate, think better about themselves, think better about business, and make sure your goal should be at the end of the day to help everybody in your community live financially free. And I believe that's why we're doing this video.
I love it, Orrin. I couldn't agree more. I really, that's exactly why we're on this webinar together, is because there's so much value hearing how we can put financial literacy in place. And literally the two of us, the Wholesaling Inc. and Life Leadership and just the financial fitness is, I'm telling you, it is a glove on a hand. It is the best fit because entrepreneurs need to understand this financial fitness side and understand money the way you understand money. This is what's crucial. We are learning from one of the best here, which I absolutely have loved. So what do we do next? I love this slide. What do we do next, Orrin? How do we get these rock star entrepreneurs financially sound, and how do we get that financial fitness in place? How can we help them out and get them rock and rolling to be financially fit?
Well, on the screen that you're probably watching this video, there is a button at the bottom that'll take you to Cody's site and allow you to purchase the green box, $120 plus tax and shipping, and we'll get to your house. And then, man, when you get it, open it up and start a deep dive. Start going through it, start reading it. I encourage you then to get on the subscriptions on a monthly basis. That's the $120. Pretty much, it's $120. The green box is $120 your first month. And then after that, you learn the defense and offense. And that defensive one will give you a couple of videos a month that'll walk you through all 47 principles. If you're serious about not just entrepreneurship, but if you're serious about living your dreams debt-free, financial freedom, then you need two things: financial literacy and entrepreneurship. Cody and Tom have created an amazing system for you guys to follow to produce wealth. And now by marrying on the financial literacy net, you're going to keep it. And that means that you're going to live the life you've always wanted for a lifetime.
Orrin, I can't thank you enough. Like, this is a perfect fit. And for those listening, I cannot reiterate just how important what Orrin just said. Get on this. This is such a huge ROI investment. And so I hate the word cheap, because cheap sounds like a bad name. It's such an affordable product. This is something that each one of you can afford, and you will start filling those gaps, those voids, those holes in the bucket, so you can start keeping this money. And I will tell you, the principles that I personally have learned, it's spot on. My return on investment is already just my home being paid off, vehicles paid off. Everything on that end is paid off. Some of the stuff I do have is what I would call some good debt. I have some rentals and things like that where the renters are paying the mortgage and there's some cash flow at the end of it. But really, even those are going to start getting knocked down. And it really is just applying these principles. And it's so affordable, $120 to change your life, to get you start thinking on how you can retain and keep this money. You don't want to be that NBA player. You don't want to be that NFL football player that goes broke after 3 years or a couple years after retiring. You want this to go on forever, so that ultimately my goal would be exactly what Orrin has in place. And that is, if I were to quit working, that I can still continue to live the life that I'm living right now without any hiccups, without any stopping, without any slowing down or selling off anything, and just keep moving forward. So I know this product is going to help me do that. So Orrin, again, spot on. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your gold nuggets, and also just how powerful this product is.
Thank you, Cody. It was great sharing today.
Okay, my man. Other than that, click on that button below. That's an easy way. I'll send you over to a link where you can purchase the Green Box Revolution, that financial fitness package. And I will tell you, when you put it down on the phone, it makes it that much easier so that you can listen to it on those long, annoying drives. He's made it so achievable to watch in multiple forms. You can learn at your house, you can learn on the road, you can learn at the office. And so it's a great product. And we hope each one of you love it. But when you get it, please take action. Remember that. That's one thing we teach in the tribe. Take massive, imperfect action. Progress, not perfection. You can't sit there and make it work. You've got to take massive action. So it's that read, listen, associate, apply, and you'll get things going, and it won't be long. And some of you might have your homes paid off. And if not, I know these principles will help you pay it off just as quick as it did for me and Wendy. And also Tom. Tom is financially free as well. So Orin, thanks again, buddy.
Have a great one. God bless you.
All right. God bless you too. Take care.